Are you seeking a better way to accelerate your sales, to scale your business, to live a life with no limits? Accelerate Sales Podcast features global experts who have cracked the code to recurring revenues with proven sales systems and get you on the fast track to scaling. Now let's accelerate your sales with today's episode.
Hello to the Accelerate Sales Podcast, episode number 388. Today's topic is super niche to scale faster. You'll learn the 5 ones, some great examples, and also a fantastic framework that you're going to get for free at the end of it. If you are a first-time listener and you love what you hear, please subscribe. If you're a regular, thanks for your support. Appreciate every review that I get. If you haven't had the chance to do one at the moment, it would mean the world to me for you to do it. Please check out past shows on your favorite platform. Just search Accelerate Sales, and don't forget to check out those wonderful interviews as well. And before we continue, I'd like to talk to you about our free Slack community for cloud consultants. It is a safe space where questions are asked and answered by like-minded peers, and we've put across, well, we're platform agnostic, right? So we've got some amazing SaaS partners from Salesforce, HubSpot, ClickUp, Zoho, Google, Microsoft, just to name a few. If you want to learn more from your peers to scale your business faster, this may be for you. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/CCC to join for free. So we've all heard about the riches are in the niches or the niches, depends how you roll. And John Lee Demas is a great example of that on Entrepreneur on Fire. I used to mention it all the time. And today I want to give you some examples of why you should be super niched or niched. I'll use niched because that's what I normally say. And also that framework. And I'd love to talk to you first about a framework that a guy called Taki Moore gave me. Now, I do think Taki is one of the best marketers for coaches in the world, and I've done some work with him. And he's actually helped me develop the framework that I'm going to give to you at the end. But what he talks about, the 5 ones, is first, one target market. Then you've got one product and service, product or service, one conversion tool, one traffic, and 1 year. So, for example, for me, my target market is cloud consultants or SaaS partners. My one product or service is the community at the moment, which is called the Cloud Consultants Collective, and I do some one-on-one. My one conversion tool is through sales calls. My one traffic is LinkedIn, and I'll definitely be doing it for the next year based on the success so far. But the first thing that we talked about is the one target market, right? And so often I see that people just don't super niche enough. They're just too broad. And what I've done is developed an ideal client profile, which I'll talk about, and also I'll give you some of the examples of how you could apply it in a moment. But I'd like to quickly talk to you about sendspark.com. I love it for sending personalized videos at scale. You can have a GIF in it, Wave. It gives you great analytics. It's fantastic. But why don't you check it out for yourself? Just go to sendspark.com, accelerate sales, and you'll get 6 months free. That's right, 6 months free for SendSpark. It's fantastic. So what are some examples? So one, the obvious one, I worked for Coca-Cola for 18 years, was, the brand Coke. Yes, lots of people drank it, right? But we were very specific in who we targeted, super niche. Then it was teenagers, and I'm not always proud that I did work at a company that did that, given the amount of sugar in my kidney health. But, if I look at it, it was very, very specific in our advertising, but that didn't mean that other people didn't drink it, right? And then if you take me as an example, so I was working in coaches and consultants up to November of last year, and I still love coaches and consultants. Coaches, I found that it's a little difficult to scale the business because it's mainly about them. And some of the consultants that were in the non-tech areas, I just couldn't help them as much. And I went back to what I was great at. So what I'm great at is that I scaled and sold a tech consulting business, and I call it a cloud consulting business. Some people call it a SaaS reseller, a SaaS partner, right? So that's who I've niched down to. So if you looked at my profile back before November, it was specific, but it wasn't super niche. Now it is. And we've done a great job in building that community that I talked about, the Cloud Consultants Collective. Now it's got 75 members in 6 weeks. We're doing a very targeted outreach. We're doing posts. We're doing podcasts. It's all around that one person. Now, that doesn't stop other people coming. And here's an example of the next thing, which is a new client of mine. So he heard me on a podcast that was probably 12 months old. And it was a consulting podcast, and he really loved what he heard and he reached out to me. Now, when he went to my profile, it didn't stop him from contacting me, right? And what I can do for him equally applies, but it's not my key target market. It's not my super niche. And for him, I said, let's just apply the same strategy for you, right? Because now we're working together. And he helps new managers. Now, he could help, given, the pandemic and what's happened, it's a massive need at the moment. People have been over-promoted. You could be one yourself. Well, you've been over-promoted, you don't have the skills and you need some development. And I said, well, let's go back through your background, etc. Because to be honest, when I look at your LinkedIn profile, you don't stand for anything. And he said, yep, that's why I'm coming to see you. So he'd worked for Apple, he'd worked for Twitter, and he'd worked for some of the other massive tech giants, right? I'm like, well, there you go. Just focus in on the tech industry and become super niched. So he's actually even picked a geography, etc. So he's gone very specific. And he said, look, I don't know. I'm very worried because, won't clients look at my profile and then who aren't exactly in tech, but I can still help them, and I'm still sort of scaling my business. It's in the early days. One, I miss out on sales. I'm like, well, did that happen with you? He said, no. So there's proof. And you know what? At worst, let's test it. But when you're doing your referral work, your network will still refer you, right? That won't stop. But what we're doing is very targeted marketing. So like Coca-Cola, we're actually going to LinkedIn and finding the exact people we need. We've been super niched on that. We're writing posts for them. We're finding out their pain points. Everything's lining up to that. And at worst, let's do it for 3 months and see what the results are, right? But already he's starting to see some great traction because he's been super niched. And I spoke about the framework, and that framework is called the Ideal Client Profile. So if you go to paulhigginsmentoring.com ICP, and like I said, Taki and others have helped me sort of pull it together, and 18 years in working at Coca-Cola, but it is very specific to business owners and of course to cloud consultants or SaaS partners. But have a look at it and then go and apply it to become not generic, but to be very super niched in your category or your industry. So what are the key actions from today? The first thing is go and define your 5 whys. The second is complete the framework. The ICP, it's completely free. You can just go and get it. It's a Google Doc off a landing page. And the third thing is, and obviously fill it out, but the third thing is the action you take, right? So go and change your LinkedIn profile and then send it to me, and I'll give you feedback based on my experience and give you everything I can. Now, I always say that not everyone takes me up, but please go and do that, and I'm here, and I promise I will help you. You can get all the links in the show notes at paulhigginsmentoring.com/podcast, episode 388, or on the app that you're listening to now. Follow me on LinkedIn because that's where I put out my best content 3 times a week. If you know someone interested in closing more sales, please share this with them. They'll think you're an absolute rock star, and it's easy to do, right? Just the first person that's comes to your mind now, you're like, oh, okay, yes, I know they're struggling with this or they've got a need for this, just share it with them. And also I want to thank Dylan Wolffinger for his personal email saying that he's been a long-time listener, he loves the show, and he said, look, I've got a great guest that I think would be perfect for you to interview. Would you be interested? I said, of course I am. And it's so lovely to hear from you, Dylan, if you're listening now, and also other people, because you probably think, oh, look, podcasters get overwhelmed with emails and feedback. But, I know myself, I love the content. I make lots of action, but I don't often go back to the host and thank them. So if you're in that situation, you've learned something, share it with me. Or if you've got a great guest like Dylan, do that as well. And also, the very last thing, as I always say, and you probably already know it, but please take action to accelerate your sales.
I'm fired up after today's episode. What about you? But hey, before you go, learning is just one piece of the puzzle. Now it's time to put today's strategy into action. Head over now to today's show page at paulhigginsmentoring.com/podcast and share how you'll put it into action. Be sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe, rate, and review the show. Tell me what your favorite episode is. And don't wait 1 minute more to gain access to your pulse check at paulhigginsmentoring.com. This could be the difference between struggling to get more leads and making this next quarter your best one yet.